As you can probably surmise at this point, a major challenge with teaching is that you have to make students care about what is being taught. And as stated in the last section, a detachment from practical applications of the subject, hands-on experience, female role models, opportunities, and a sense of equality both in employment and treatment of male versus female employees is what has kept many females from wanting to pursue STEM careers. Now, as I said earlier, as a kid, I really hated school. I went because I was forced to. I was usually high achieving, but, reserved, anxious kid. I had basically a speech impediment until I was 10. Technically a speech articulation disorder, where any word with any R I would speak as a W, so art would be ah, and read would be weed. So, it makes you really inhibited because you felt kind of mocked and misunderstood, so that kept you extra quiet. And my sister kind of had the same issue, but, she started speaking more and being around her friends and talking to them, and that helped, whereas I was, like I said, more reserved and more introverted in that regard, which was detrimental for me. But by the time I got to age 10, some serious stuff was happening in my life. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. And my voice was kind of maturing, too, as you get into, puberty, pre-puberty area. So, and also, I had gone to 3 different elementary schools, so I didn't have many friends, so that sucked. So that's a big reason I hated school to begin with. It made me a miserable, nervous wreck in so many regards. And like I said before, teachers usually only addressed me when they were upset and wanted to yell or scold me for something they thought I did. So, I always had a negative association with many of them for that reason. Not all of them, but there were definitely some. Especially, elementary and middle school, there were a couple of crazy teachers I've had to just, not haha funny, it's no, DSM level, how can you be allowed to be around youth teachers. It's public school, not a great place for quiet kids. I have seen articles talk about, too, it's oh yeah, I was a quiet kid, so I'm trying to figure out as a teacher how best can I relate to those students. So that's something to consider, but that's, why I didn't really like school. But I always liked art, and like I said, some things I really like to do. Art, video games, I was interested in animals, those were 3 big things. I actually made sure for this vlog I put on my Zelda Wind Waker shirt. Isn't that cool? When they had it all cel-shaded and it was all controversial because people were like, it's too cartoony, it's too much for kids. But yeah, that was always a fun part for me. That was a big bonding moment for my dad and my sister and me. I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, up until middle school or high school, the only topic I really liked was art. I got to create things and design, and it was mostly a low-pressure environment. And I know I had talked to my sister so long ago when I was in high school about that, too. It's yeah, well, the reason that's a more relaxed atmosphere is because they don't have the regents at the end of the year that they have to prep you for and be stressed out about and do it in this deadline. They get to be more lax about getting that stuff, which is, you get into Common Core, you get into, oh yeah, standardized tests, and these are what the goals you have to have students meet. So it's instead of teaching so they can retain and apply it, it's no, you have to teach so they get the numbers, which is dumb. I don't think many people would argue about that too much. But yeah, art was what I really liked. I could be myself. I was encouraged to express myself without constant or immediate criticism, because that always felt like one of the times teachers were talking to me, it's oh yeah, you said this wrong, or you did this wrong, or something. So it's one of those stupid things when you're a quiet kid and you just automatically internalize all this criticism. That's too damn sensitive. But yeah, when I drew, I could make stories, it was a way I could connect with kids, I could make jokes, I remember, and I still, and craft stories too, and it was I remember in 1st or 2nd grade, I was working with a girl and we were making a smiley face family, but I kept drawing boobs on the dad, and I still think that's funny. I'm almost 30 and I still think that's funny. But, you know, just one of those ways you can get people to laugh and you can interact with them. That was the appeal to me, you know, so it makes sense that I followed that kind of career path. But yeah, never liked math, science, or history, really. It wasn't really until college when I had my studio art major, we did art history courses, and through the lens of, you know, oh, this is what happened in culture, history in this time, and that's like, here's the bigger picture, that's when it started really being interesting to me, because otherwise it wasn't unless we were talking about like certain topics like the Holocaust, like how can this happen to humanity, how do human beings do this, what are the details of this, just that really grim stuff. I wasn't really interested in, you know, history, because again, it was like with math and science, it's the numbers, it's the dry, boring text, it's things that aren't pertaining to your everyday life, it's just getting it ready for your Regents exam or whatever they have now. Dry, boring, didn't appear to have anything to do with what I was interested in, you know, and there should be a way to apply these subjects to your interests, you know. We'll get into that. Yeah, that's why Common Core and teaching for test scores instead of students' continued interest and retention is a bad thing. And it's ridiculous, because obviously I'm going to be focusing more on science here in tech. They kind of interlap in so many ways, interlock. Because science is about the world around us, the world within us, and even, you know, inside us, and even beyond us, things we haven't even conceived of, that our minds would be blown. It was like, oh, I didn't even know that was here. That's what we do every day. It's discovery, it's innovation, it's research, and just uncovering these new ideas and sharing them with people. That's fascinating. How is it never perceived that way through school? Maybe some kids, you know, I think, you know, it depends on the teachers, it depends on the parents, it depends on what extracurriculars, anything outside of school you get to see or experience. I think that's a big part of how to draw people in. Yeah, because there's math and fast, replication and repetition, because, you know, you have to be able to replicate results, repeat the process and everything for the scientific method and everything of that nature. But that's a small picture. It's not the big picture. You know, you create so much with science. You build so much upon with science and everything. And like I said before, there's an art to every science and a science to every art. There's methodology, problem solving, innovation, ingenuity, imagination, research, peer review. And then let's go, like I said before, from age 11 and a half until 15 is when girls' interests in STEM topics really starts to take off, and then by 15 that's when it's starting to wane, at least according to these 12 European countries that were interviewed, the people in these countries who were interviewed in that survey from Microsoft. But yeah, I later became interested in English and writing, because it was another way, you know, people could start addressing important issues, things that we were going through during that time, things that seem pertinent to our everyday lives and our personal struggles, where readers and writers could connect across, you know, time and cultures and gain insight and exposure to worlds you may not otherwise visit. And that's so incredible to me, you know, because even if you're stuck, you can, like, see this whole other world and experience that you never would have thought of. Because I know there were some in high school too, and in some, not even English classes, just some books we read, again, stuff with the Holocaust. I remember a history class in 9th grade where we read, I believe it was called Princess, about a Saudi Arabian princess and how females are treated in that culture among that religion, and all the details, and just really eye-opening, and it's dark and horrible, but such a good read to see, you know, such differences among cultures and what's considered acceptable and what even over there they don't, they want change but have no power to make it so. Um, yeah, and supportive teachers in the arts in general, arts, English, that kind of stuff. They were really considerate, really made the difference to me. Um, I mean that sounds so stereotypically artsy, girly to say, expected from, the creative, sensitive, brooding type, but, it really made a world of difference, because, here's the thing. When I was 10, well, I guess I should start with first. My parents divorced when I was 7 or 8. They never got along, whatever. But I went to live with my mom, and that's when, I went from school A to school B and then school C. Almost went back to school A, but stayed at C at least until I went to middle school. But when I was 10, my mom had a psychotic break. We found out that she has late onset schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia subtype. And I can't even tell you, with all the therapists and psychiatrists I've seen even around here, how many haven't even heard of late onset and deny it. So I have to actually educate the people who are supposed to be helping, either my mother or myself, with that. But because mom was sick, she had that breakdown, we ended up living with dad, who I hadn't seen much after the divorce. Especially because, after he moved away, an hour or so, I tend to get car sick, so I was a very belligerent child and very stubborn, so if I didn't want to do something, I would protest. But then, things got stable with dad and everything until I was 13, and it was before I entered 8th grade. Dad ended up having to go to the hospital, and we found out he had cancer. They thought it was anemia at first, but it turned out it was melanoma that had quickly metastasized and spread into his stomach, lungs, brain, and pancreas. He had died before the end of my 8th grade year. So, yeah, within a year I had lost him, and then mom came back into our lives, and because there are so many struggles with our mental health care, our system, finances. She'd had a couple more breakdowns while I was still living with her back up in Oswego. But yeah, things were really turbulent, and obviously we ended up living with mom after dad had passed away. She had come back to help him when he was dying and sick, so the family did reunite in that way. But yeah, any sense of stability and security, safety, love, happiness, just seemed eradicated with my father's passing. But that is one way two of my big interests with the science and technology came. I do have interests with healthcare, with mental health, with cancers. I try to volunteer with groups that support issues such as those. The good thing about Rochester, at least, we do have, so many hospitals around here, with Strong and the U of R, especially teaching hospitals and places that are, always coming through with breakthroughs. We've got Galisanos for kids specifically for their health too. So yeah, that's, health sciences and stuff were interesting. And again, any teachers who are kind, and because I lost my dad, so my English teacher in 9th grade, Mr. Ranieri, who passed away a few years ago, he was kind of a father figure, because he did have kids, around my and my sister's age too. But yeah, it was nice to have this nice guy here who could joke around and actually learn from. And it was funny too, because my mom actually had him for a teacher his first year. He was originally going to be a history teacher, and he had him reading Macbeth comic books, so graphic novels. So he was kind of a ahead of his time with that, because people are starting to appreciate that as a legitimate art form and means of literary device. I don't know. What am I trying to say? Just a legitimate text rather than just something for kids. But yeah, mom had him his first year, and then he obviously ended up being the English teacher, and he actually graduated with my class, so that was nice. But yeah, him, most of my art teachers, some were I am thinking of one guy who was, I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, and the English. Just anyone who was supportive and encouraged me, it made the world a difference. And I feel like so pathetic talking about this now, and I kind of want to well up too, but it's, yeah, I mean, that's what mattered. And I did have good, a couple of good science teachers. I know Mrs. Reynes, our chemistry teacher, she knew how to teach. She knew that we had visual learners, auditory learners, and kinetic learners, so she made sure to incorporate all of that into our labs and stuff we did, so people could really understand what was happening and retain the information, but also, you know, have us look at applications of chemistry, you know, it turns out the listing of ingredients on food, it goes from what's the most in that into the least. So like if the first ingredient is water, this product is mostly made up of water. And then or talking about, where do you think they get the air in airplanes, because that's not naturally occurring, because the pressure and everything would be killing you. And stuff like we wouldn't have considered otherwise. So yeah, she really knew what she was doing too. It's just those kind of applications, like I said. Happy things. Yeah, but like any teachers let us read books from contemporary authors and had issues that felt pertinent to our lives and experiences, and teachers who let us express ourselves and encouraged us to work on the things we enjoyed. You know, those were some of the brightest parts of my high school years. And so many could see the anxiety and misery on my face, but it was really beyond me to control it. And I hated being confronted about it since I couldn't really do anything about it. And, you know, there were psychiatrists and therapists who came later, but I got memoirs worth of stuff about that I'm not getting into here. But, like I said, my interests in science mainly laid in healthcare and social sciences. I wanted to learn more to fix myself and prevent others from facing the kind of suffering I had endured. And it's, I mean, I having volunteered at places that's, you know, help encourage, you know, people who might have mental health issues, or kind of a Big Brothers Big Sisters programs. You know, I've heard, a common theme is that they all want to, when they grow up, what they want to do is to serve justice, to have justice for people, and that's, you know, when they've had traumatic upbringings, when they've had horrible things, traumatic things happen to them. That's a theme. I'm like, I really relate to that. So, you know, my wanting to go into journalism and English and art all kind of stem from that too. So those are the big things. And yes, there was a big emotional drive, but like I said, these were my passions. These were things that I was interested in, especially with art or the arts at large, since I was, you know, before I could even speak. You know, and it sounds like, you know, letting your emotions lead you, but, you know, I was a teenager. I found my passions, which was always something worth pursuing, because, I had gotten horrible anxiety and depression after all the stuff with first mom and then dad, so anything that could help alleviate the hell I was going through constantly, I latched on to like there was no tomorrow. But yeah, teachers can make a world of difference, and I mean, it doesn't have to be in-school educators too. Everyone has the potential to be a teacher, to teach someone something. We can learn just as much outside of school as we do in school. I can't tell you how many college professors would just ramble on about things they did decades ago that were not at all pertinent to the fields of study we were in. And, you know, whereas, you know, we're going to go out on campus and do this or go see this. It's like, wow, yeah, that opened a whole new world. It gave me new perspective and taught me so many things. So there is no one size fits all when it comes to education. It's that you keep learning and you enjoy it and you learn as much as possible, and try to encourage others to do the same. But yeah, teachers make a world of difference. I had some good ones, a couple of good ones who knew to apply lessons to our everyday lives, and yeah, to teach all different kinds of learners, and opened our eyes and forced us to examine things we would never have even considered. So that all leads into how we can work to get girls invested in STEM subjects and along the STEM career path.